So Bruce is a friend of many, many years and an inspiration. He's a fourth generation native Flathead Valley, a graduate of the University of Montana, a realtor for 50 years with Land and Lake Realty. He grew up on Flathead Lake, the son of Dolores and Stan Young, the founder of Stancraft Boats and with marinas on Point Caroline and Polson, and Bruce has spent a lot of time on the water. He is the president of the Flathead Lake Protection Association, a small nonprofit, much like us, who has done incredible work over many years, for 45 years, so you got us beat. They have brought 8 major lawsuits concerning water quality and bad planning, and they were victorious on all of them. So these are people that are so important to protecting our water quality. Bruce is a champion in that. He has served on the advisory board of the Flathead Lake Biological Station for 40 years. He served on the Flathead Lakers board for 10 years. He was the executive producer of 8 1.5-hour educational videos about the complexities of water and their uses and abuses and solutions based here in the Flathead. He worked with Bonnie Ellis and Rick Hauer, scientists at Flathead Lake Biological Station, and Rick will be speaking to us later tonight, to create the Keep the Flathead Lake Blue, which is a license plate, and it has raised over $500,000 over a number of years for the biological station and the research work that they do. The Protection Association got an EPA technical grant assistant to address the pollution at the BN Summers Tie Plant, which has again become an issue because of a new subdivision that's going on in that area and because the pollution has migrated. I could go on, but I think you see the passion he shares with you for maintaining water quality in the Flathead. Bruce will be sharing some of his experiences and observations for the last 50 years in the trenches. Bruce.
Well, good evening, friends and neighbors. I've seen so many of you before, and I appreciate each and every one of you who's here who cares about our water quality in this valley and our planning. And it's paramount that citizens participate in this process. Without us doing so, we will not be able to save the quality of life that we have. And so, as Mary said, my profession has been real estate, but my passion has been water. And my passion has been acknowledgement of that water is life, and it's related to our quality of life here. And the need for your assistance in the future is growing. It's exponential. We are not going to avoid growth in this valley. It's going to continue to happen, and there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. So I want you to think about that. Over 250 agencies and users of water were charted out in the year 2000 in the Flathead Valley. So it's a very complex issue between the water, the operations of dams, Mother Nature, and good planning. And so there's a lot of interest in water from many different standpoints and many different sides, and it's hard to understand, but we've tried in our efforts to help educate people about some of these things in the past, and we must continue to do so. A few interesting facts. We have some of the most pristine water on earth coming out of the North Fork, the Middle Fork, and the South Fork, because they're all protected areas. And my challenge and our challenge is to keep it drinkable and clean. And if we can't do this in the first 100 miles of that water, what do you think happens downstream? You know, So 2% of the water is drinkable, 1% is locked into polar caps. That's an interesting discovery of science so far. And so we should keep that in mind as well. And as Rachel Carson said, who wrote Silent Springs, about chemicals in our water, that's a problem that hasn't gone away. And to illustrate that, 98% of municipal water departments have DuPont chemicals in them. And these are other things that we need to be aware of and start to challenge some of those issues. Right now, we've discovered that at a young age, those chemicals in water are affecting people and affecting blood pressure and all kinds of things, and they stay with you the rest of your life. And they've just discovered those things. And so, again, we've got a lot of challenges, and so we need to stay with it. We need to be persistent and doggedly about what we're doing. And the only way we can do that is support a group like Citizens and Mary Flower, who've done the research, who've done the necessary things. And it's hard work and it's expensive work to be in this arena anymore. So I hope in the future we can renew our vows to step up and do what we can to help all of these things. I'm going to talk about the history of water a little bit, just to give you some background. In 1940, the Army Corps of Engineers wanted to raise Kerr Dam 35 feet above the lake level and turn Flathead Lake into a reservoir for power for the aluminum plants and for the war effort and for Boeing and places like that were building aircraft. And Mike Mansfield, one of our great statesmen from this state, appealed to President Roosevelt in a letter. The farmers came to the meeting with the Army Corps in Polson with their pitchforks and shotguns, and the recreationalists did. And as a result of that, we ended up with Hungry Horse Dam. We saved Flathead Lake in 1940. And so that was the first kind of big onslaught onto the lake. And beyond that, then we started having housing around the lake, cabins with poor septic systems and things of that nature as a threat to the lake. And we've improved some of those standards all right. And some of us have even sewered parts of the lake, like Lakeside and Summers area. And our intention of that original sewer was to protect the lake and protect along the lake. And I'll get into that a little bit later, because there's now some proposals to take our sewer line way up into the hills and expand a sewer system that won't take the burden where it is. So we have some issues, as Mary said, and some issues are being brought to bear in the court. The ramifications of those things could be devastating down the road, and I'll get into that a little bit. Then we had the threats of some bad timber practices and some bad farming practices. We weren't too cognizant of the chemicals that were going into the water and the slough from the roads of road cuts and things like that were choking out the bull trout and other things. And after that, we ran into the Burlington Northern Tie Plant, which was a Superfund site. We did have a technical assistance grant. Those petrochemicals are traveling underground. They've had to remove a lot of houses in Summers because of that. But these are the results of challenging these things. We made progress. We did things that were right. And that's why we have to continue. Then we had a lumber mill in Summers Bay a long time ago that made the ties for the tie plant. And we've discovered there's heavy metals in the bay. And sometimes you shouldn't eat the fish out of that area. And to reiterate heavy metals, we've got 1,300 miles of streams in Montana that you can't eat the fish out of from heavy metals from mining. And so these are all the things that we as citizens must guard against, because oftentimes politics and other issues blur the process, and we become the losers of all this. We in the area for the tie plant, for the aluminum plant, for the Libby situation. Senator Baucus did us a favor back in the 70s, and he funded a $5 million study of our aquifers. So we learned some things about it, but not everything we need to know. Howard Newman was a hydrologist, and he did a fantastic job for us. We have a constitution in the state of Montana that says we're entitled to clean air and clean water, and it's been very beneficial in litigation that's been brought to bear in the past. Then we had another crisis of Fish and Game decided to play biological arrogance, and they planted mysis shrimp in Flathead Lake, and we lost what I grew up on eating, the beautiful kokanee salmon, And we lost the bald eagles that came up to Glacier National Park every year. And it was a $15 million industry in the fall of the early 70s for us as tourism. So we lost all those things because we weren't paying enough attention. They didn't ask the biological station at Flathead Lake, the University of Montana, one of the oldest limnology stations in the country and one of the best. They put out science that's world-class and used in the entire world. And I've associated with those people for a long time and learned a great deal and been so pleased to be of assistance there. Then became an issue of nitrates and phosphates, and we upgraded our sewer plant in Kalispell, but even at that it impaired Ashley Creek, which flows into Flathead Lake. And so we still have issues there at this time, with little regard to storm drainage, which is critical to our future. Storm drainage is huge in what's coming up at us. Then there was the North Fork issue of drilling and mining and coal mining in Canada and the International Joint Commission. And again, Max Bacchus helped us there, but we still have issues coming up from that. It's a real threat to the North Fork and to the water coming in the North Fork. Aluminum plant pollutions, big corporations are willing to poison you as long as there's profit. And we need to be aware of that and step up. Some of the solutions offered aren't always the best solutions, and the citizens must be involved. And then later on in the 1990s, 96, I think it was, we had a bill called I-121, sponsored by the mining industry. We had a governor that went along with that and suggested that arsenic dilution in our streams was just fine. Well, I beg to differ. Dilution does not work. Dilution doesn't even work in the oceans. Just look at the continental shelves. Most of them are dying off right now. So we have to stop practices like that and thinking like that and stop considering everything to be a dollar bill item. Then we had the threat of milfoil and other plants, zebra mussels and things like that, and we're still battling that. Flathead Lake Protection Association put in from the first seed money out to both the Kootenai Salish and the Blackfeet to put up stations to check for zebra mussels, and then we got involved in lobbying the state government to get involved. This is a very serious issue. If or when the zebra mussel arrives here, it could be catastrophic both to our electricity systems, to pump outs for farming and ranches, and just the regular lakeshore property owner. They estimated several years ago it would be a $500 million hit every year just to clean out those zebra mussels, and I'm sure that figure is probably doubled by now. I don't have a fact on that. We also need to recognize the economic benefits of water in the Flathead Valley. It's the goose that laid the golden egg and the one that's been here forever. Since the 1910, 1920, when Glacier Park started up, tourism is a huge industry in the Flathead, and it touches every business here, whether you think it does or not. It truly does touch your pocketbook. We've gone out, we've reached out from the bio station and started connecting with these businesses so they understand the relationship between keeping this water clean and their pocketbook. And we're inviting businesses to come in and help us, and I believe citizens, we should be doing the same thing in the future, and I intend to help do that. Now, microplastics, well, let's go back one. Kerr Dam and Hungry Horse Dam were up for relicensing, and when you relicense, they have to mitigate the damages the way those dams has operated in the past to our environment. Well, at the time, the tribe had their hand out for a hatchery, and so did the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and I was on the board of the Lakers at that time, and we sued the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and got those dams to re-regulate how they operate, and I'll just try and explain this briefly. Kerr Dam was base load and peak loading. In other words, they were yo-yoing the stream south of the Kerr Dam, and that was killing the biota and killing little fingerling fishes on the edge of the stream. And so we got that corrected. Now they just base load. And Hungry Horse was taking their water off the bottom of Hungry Horse. It was so cold, it was shocking the biota and the little fisheries in Hungry Horse, and it was a very short growing season for their food source. So we forced a flue to take that water off the top of the dam, and I can guarantee you those fisheries have improved since that time. So those are some of the bigger issues that we faced. We sued and we won that contest. Now we're looking at microplastics and storm drainage and real plastic. In fact, I just saw an article just today that talked about real plastics that are getting in through our water sources again, and getting into people and children's stomachs and staying for life and causing high blood pressure and all kinds of things. This is a brand new study. So we really have some issues to address as a group. And the only way we're going to get that done is we stick together, we stick to it, and let's raise the bar. You know, let's work together and raise that bar. So the DNRC for the Flathead Valley, and I can say this because I've been in the trenches and been in litigation many times, they have a very poor track record here. Unfortunately, they're understaffed and don't have enough money. Maybe that's by purpose. The governor of this state just removed the standards, the numerical standards for water quality. Why do you think that is? It's called industry. We can't take it. The EPA says you have to have the standards. Litigation was taken on that issue, and they were ordered to put the standards back in. Those are being ignored. There's probably going to be more litigation on it. That's all I can say about that at this time, but it's unfortunate. They approved a new permit for the Summers Lakeside Sewer Department for a massive influx of effluent into it, up to 1 million gallons a day eventually. And I helped find that land for the sewer for Lakeside. It was designed to protect Flathead Lake along the lake shore, okay? And now an entity has come in and wants us to provide that sewer. That's our only connection to Lakeside, is our sewer line way up in the hills. And I have some thoughts about that. I have an opinion about that. These are very wealthy people, and I feel that if they really can get something approved on steep slopes with high fire district, high fire zone, and poor soils that are all going to storm drain into Flathead Lake, they can build their own sewer, and a first-class one. So that's just an opinion. But so they want 450 homes and a golf course up there in pretty poor territory. We were told at one time that would never be built on because of the reasons I just said by a planning board. That was back in the 80s. Plum Creek land, cheap land, and this is what we get. So the Lakeside Sewer Pond has groundwater 8 to 24 feet below it. And they want to load this stuff on there up to 1 million gallons. And all of that stuff is moving underground. The water is moving underground towards a slough and towards Ashley Creek, which goes into Flathead Lake. Furthermore, they're adding insult to injury when they load this stuff up right next to a Superfund site that already has petrochemicals moving underground that we can't fix. They have no fix for this if it ever blows up. And what does that do to Flathead Lake? Nothing good, I assure you and guarantee you of that. So we have to stand in and contest these things. Sometimes there's no other way. If politicians are willing to ignore the rules and DNRC is willing to ignore common sense and science, and the only thing we have left is to litigate. And we've done that successfully. Citizens has done it successfully. Mary Flowers, if we didn't have Mary Flowers, you guys, this valley wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. I mentioned that, and also what people aren't aware of, but the limestone aquifer that stretches from Foy's Lake to Rollins provides drinking. It's a deep aquifer, but it provides drinking water for everybody. You locate this sewer stuff on top of it. Let's say we have a little earthquake or something else. You destroy that aquifer, you will never clean it up. So we have a lot to be concerned about, and as a group, I know we can stick together, we can raise the bar, and we can do the best we can by this valley and the influx that's going to happen. Pumper trucks want to dump in our sewer when in fact that's expedient for political means and expedient for developers, but it's not good for us in the long run. There are places north and west of Kalispell that are 600 feet to groundwater and no rivers around them. That's the place we should be locating with common sense, these sorts of things. So some of these approvals were done without real information to us in the sewer district. For instance, $38 million worth of contracts between the county government and the 1889 club that wants to build south of Lakeside. We had no information, none. They had a meeting. They suggest, well, your sewer rates might raise $60 a month or more, or $30 or more, whatever it was just like bizarre to go to a meeting and not be able to penetrate the issues and talk about it. And I say this in all honesty, I've witnessed in my trials, at one time, the commissioners and the planning board refused to acknowledge 14 of their own regulations that were provided to us to protect the resources for everyone, for the public. And in another case we had, they issued 27 variances and 3 major variances, and our property is only supposed to have 1 major variance. So they ignore the law and they don't care because they know most people aren't going to stand up and stop them. And it's your nickel that's going to defend their bad judgments, if you will. Also, our planning board has been an issue. I've witnessed, and I can say this because I call it cheap theater, but I've witnessed a planning board that has some legitimate people that really were interested in planning and overburdened by county commissioners who appointed people that were in their pocket and their political persuasion. And I've seen it time and again, and sometimes you sit there and it's just almost embarrassing to watch. And we need this to come up. So, at any rate, we need to stay in this. We need to stay and stop the de facto planning by a sewer board in Lakeside that goes outside of its district and offers sewer hookups to everywhere. The North Shore of Summers is an example. They issued 190 hookups, and then the commissioner said, no, we're not going to let you build up here. There would have been one house for 20 acres up there without sewer. They sued this county, and the county settled for over $2 million of your money without giving us any valid reasons for doing so. They just decided it was in the best interest, okay? So you can see we've got a lot of issues. We've got a lot of interesting things. Bottling companies, we shouldn't be issuing bottling company any right to bottle water in this valley until such time as we know exactly what quality and quantity of water is in our aquifers, exactly what our projection is for future uses, and with global warming and growth. Until then, that shouldn't be happening, because oftentimes in places that have done this and made this mistake, it has cost people a lot of money to buy that water back. So there's a lot to consider. We have mercury poisoning from coal still going into the air in Montana. We need to stay with it. My hat's off to those who take the challenge. Even young people are doing so. My hat's off to Roger Sullivan and the young people who have sued over global warming and their right. And their right to clean air and clean water. The biggest other issues we have is storm drainage and road cuts. And road cuts, you can see road cuts from Big Fork that is just south of Lakeside that were never seeded, and it's not even demand from our planning board to do so. We have a new dock in Lakeside south of Stoner Creek with 31 boat slips signed off by county commissioners, no pump out station. Flathead Lake has 2 pump out stations usable for the public. Lake Tahoe has 185. We need better leadership in this county to step up and do these things. So It takes courage to ask for help, and that's what I and citizens are doing. Please renew your vows to assist in building an even stronger public group that we continue our efforts and maintain the quality of life so dear to each and every one of us. I thank you all for listening. It's all possible with your help, persistence, and diligence. Thank you.